episode of That Recap Show. Live? Why not? Let's do it. So, just before we get into the show, just wanted to mention, major spoiler alert, we are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 3 of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So if you haven't checked that out yet, you may want to pause this live video, head over to Disney Plus, come back here, and enjoy the breakdown. Now with that out of the way, let's start the show!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
Breakdown of episode 3 in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, it's Jon Jon Rico.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
I mean, it's going, man. Like, I will totally be the first one to say this. I did not realize that we were switching to Wednesdays for the rest of the Kenobi series, because in my Danny brain, I was like, oh, this Marvel's coming up in a week or two.
Oh, yeah.
They're gonna leave it on Friday. They're not going to have Wednesdays overlap with two things that we need to recap. So in my brain, right? So like you hit me up like Wednesday, like, I don't know, it was like noon my time, 9 o'clock your time. And you were like, yeah, great routine episode. And then just, you didn't get to see it, but like the fear that washed over my face was like equivalent to the look of Obi-Wan Kenobi when he realizes Anakin had not died. Like that was the look in my face on Wednesday morning when you said awesome episode. Luckily, we were able to, discuss and move this to Friday and have a live discussion on this so that we can continue our record of Marvel pre-tapes so that we don't get too bogged down with trying to do like so many recorded episodes and so many live episodes. So anyway, welcome to the show. We are going to be like I said, we are going to be recapping everything from episode 3. A lot happened.
Oh yeah, to say the least.
I will start off with my reference of our episode, at least, not reference of that episode. Basically, with a reference of we didn't get a reference that I wanted. There's a scene when Obi-Wan and young Leia are trying to hitch a ride. Basically, Obi-Wan does not want to hitch a ride. He's completely against it, but Leia wants to hitch a ride, and basically they come across some new friends along the ride who just happen to be stormtroopers, and Leia's like, say hi, and we got it. Obi-Wan, I was like, do it, say it, he's gonna say it. Hello. And that's all we got.
I had the same feeling. Yeah.
I was like, it's so close. Because in my head, I was like, he's going to do it. He's going to say it. He's going to say hello there. But my brain made a connection just in thinking of it, getting ready for this recap, it was the equivalent to when we wanted Steve Rogers, Captain America, to say Avengers Assemble. And we got we got multiple occasions where it like got cut off. It said Avengers and then just went to black type of thing. So it's like the equivalent of that. We got a hello. Like that's it. That's all we got.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping before the end of the series we at least get one hello there. Even if it's not in the same tone. I just want an Obi-Wan hello there. I will be so happy. But Rico, what were some of your instant reactions to episode 3?
Well, yeah, holy shit, man. So for the hello there thing, yeah, trust me, there was part of me that was like, oh, please say it. Like, if you're gonna say it, just say it now. But like, also, like, I don't want the hello there of the series to be wasted on a dude like Frick. No mistake to Frick.
To be fair, he was voiced by Zach Braff.
Yeah. Cool. That's a cool casting Easter egg for sure.
We had
There's a lot of people
JD.
who thought he was Seth Rogen.
I know. A lot of people
I
were
thought
making
that was really
joke.
funny.
Yeah,
I saw one dude who was like, dude, Seth Rogen's in the show. And everyone was like, bro, that's not Seth Rogen. And he was like, what? But really the first thing I gotta say is like, dude, Vader's back. Like to say the least, Vader is freaking back.
With a vengeance.
Yeah, tell me about it. But the first of all, that's the sequence of him being assembled, as we were just talking about, but was really cool. We've always seen different versions of that, of course, but we never really seen the full on like putting on the suit, like putting on his legs and his arms and stuff like that. And I feel like he gets to a point later on where he doesn't even need to do all that because he's in like his little egg pod in Empire Strikes Back and all of that. Like he almost evolves from the back to tank at some point, but we're still seeing him at this one point, like still kind of healing from those injuries. And honestly, one of my favorite shots is when the helmet's coming down. You really get a good clear shot of Anakin's face before the helmet comes on. I think that's perfection. So yeah, seeing that, and then just getting to see him in action, of course, and all that. But later on, when Obi-Wan and Leia are walking through the planet, Mapuzo, I think is the name of the planet. They're walking, and Anakin has a little bit of a vision. He sees a hooded, cloaked figure out there, just kind of hanging out in the distance.
Obi-Wan has a vision. You just said Anakin has a vision.
Sorry. Yeah, Obi-Wan has a vision, and he sees Anakin. He sees a young Anakin, basically. Anakin turns around, and you're like, it took me a little bit to notice who that was. And then when I paused it, it was really quick when it happened. So I was like, who is that? Like, is that who they're supposed to be meeting, or whoever it is? Like, is that someone just kind of like watching out over him or whatever? Like, like that mysterious figure that's like watching over people before you meet them later on or whatever it is. But no, it was a vision of Anakin looking pretty pissed off. But it was like, I think that was our first, like, Anakin, live action Anakin spotting of the show. Not as Vader or anything like that, which was really cool to see. Like, he's obviously aged a little bit, but not enough to where he looks too old to be that old version of Anakin, which is pretty great. But another cool thing about that is when they're on the transport to get into the city, there's that whole interaction with the stormtroopers and stuff like that, where Obi-Wan almost gets a little blunder there, and then he manages to kind of talk his way out of it. But because of that, Leia has this whole thing like, oh, I feel like you know more than you're letting on, and stuff like that. And first of all, like, she thinks he's her real father, which of course is not. And that's obviously a harder thing for him to talk about. But it goes into this whole thing where they talk about the Force and how it works, and like what happened to him as a baby when he was taken as a child to be to the Jedi Temple. He mentions the fact that he has like this little, glimpses of his, like, his mother's shawl, his dad's hands, and he goes, a baby. And we basically learned that Obi-Wan has a brother out there. I would assume an older brother, because in canon, I think Obi-Wan was taken from his family when he was about 6 months old. So if he has glimpses of a baby, he has like those kind of Force visions that Force young children tend to have. And he probably remembers like an older brother that might be, not much older than him, but still like a toddler or something like that. So I thought that was a really interesting thing to kind of, give some more backstory into Obi-Wan's character, but I don't expect to see anything of that anytime soon. I don't think we'll ever see anything of Obi-Wan's actual family unless it's somebody else interacting with them. That's the only thing that would make sense to me. But, other than that, there's so much more to talk about, but this is a great episode altogether, Danny.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So you want to give some big takeaways?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to kick us off.
Let's go.
I mean, perfect place where you left it off was when we got that real quick glimpse of an angry Anakin.
Yeah.
Goes right into my first big takeaway, because this worked out perfect. The whole Obi-Wan and Vader scenes. I don't know what really to call it, like act or scenes.
Their first encounter.
Yeah,
Basically,
horror movie vibes, straight up horror movie vibes. So that spot that you mentioned is exactly like a precursor in a horror movie. Like one of the characters sees a glimpse of something that they're like, and they're
haunting
like,
of his
"What?"
past.
Yeah, and that always comes back like later on in the slasher movie or later on in the horror movie or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So it works out perfect
Stranger
with the horror.
Things.
Yeah, it works out perfect with the horror vibe that I was getting during this, because I mean, you got Obi-Wan, who's just like, I get that he's kind of like dampened down his force and he's kind of reactivating it, and we're kind of
cut off.
Yeah, but we're kind of slowly seeing him start to use things again, basically. But for the life of him, he could not get away from Vader. It was just like, if you threw in a couple times where he like tripped by accident, it would be exactly like a horror movie where like somebody's trying to get away from the killer and just keep, like, no matter how fast they run, the killer's just walking steadily and is just keeping up with them, because Vader was just everywhere. Type of thing. He was just playing.
He's the boogeyman.
Yeah,
he's 100% the boogeyman, which is
that's
awesome.
it. That's it. Essentially, Vader has turned into the boogeyman for Obi-Wan. And to the extreme of where I was watching a bunch of other kind of Easter egg videos and just like breakdown videos and stuff like that, and they were saying, like, Vader could have 100% used a force power to get rid of the fire the second time, when the fire shoots up again and Obi-Wan is off the flames and basically essentially gets rescued. Vader just stood there. He's just like, nah, I'm not gonna kill him now. We're gonna torture him some more, type of thing. So like, that is straight up horror movie vibe. Like, it's just like the I'm just letting you go for now because I'm gonna kill you later.
He says it in the scene when he's I don't know if it's when he first starts dragging him through the fire, but he says, "This is the beginning of your suffering." And you can tell that he is out there to maim and torture Obi-Wan as much as he can before he finally. There's no way he waited 10 years to just kill him right there.
Right.
Because that's not what that's not going to give him the satisfaction. That's not what Obi-Wan did to him in his eyes. So he wants to kind of pay him back for that. That's what he's been feeding off of for 10 years. And I think that's really a great part of Vader's character that's finally being portrayed in this show, is how that feeling of revenge that he's wanted for all this time has been feeding his power, and it's only made him stronger. Yeah. And it shows in this scene, like literally his hatred for Obi-Wan has made him so much stronger. We've seen it with Darth Maul. Darth Maul's hatred for Obi-Wan kept him alive after being cut in half. So imagine what happened to a guy, the chosen one, essentially, when that happened to him. It's just magnified times 100, essentially, because he's Vader. But terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And yeah, it's that whole thing of like, it's that muscle that that Obi-Wan hasn't stretched or hasn't used in so much time, and it kind of goes back to it's really shades of Last Jedi with Luke and all that. Like their journeys are really reflected in this part of their story. Like when ultimately when Luke sacrifices himself in Last Jedi, is because he hadn't been using the Force for so long, almost probably longer than Obi-Wan maybe at that point. That he used it in such a way that it ended up killing him. And we can only imagine, like, remember how much it took for Obi-Wan just to use it to save Leia. And it didn't tire him that much, but that the amount of power needed to stop a guy like Vader wasn't even enough. He didn't have enough in him to even stop him from being force choked, from being pushed around like a little bitch. None of that. One-handed too.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Vader was just like, just everyone's.
It's so well done, man. Like,
but it really does show, like, the 10 years how Obi-Wan was like here, and
from here,
and it's just kind of gone like
went
this.
from like this. Yeah, it's exactly what it's done. Like if Obi-Wan was just a little bit more here, it's like right here now.
So what I'm wondering is, so each episode, well, maybe not each episode, but each we'll say recap, but like we got the first 2 episodes the first time, and now we got one. But I'm wondering if every new week we're going to see Obi-Wan trying to communicate with Qui-Gon. And as he kind of becomes more and more back aligned with the Force, I wonder if we're going to get that interaction, the Force Ghost interaction, once he's kind of crossed a threshold of a certain amount of, it using it again and it coming back to him type of thing.
Yeah. I think if it doesn't happen this next episode, it'll probably happen in the 5th episode for sure. It's got to be that moment where Obi-Wan gets like his Force mojo back, basically. And it's going to make that second encounter between them the rematch we've been waiting for.
Well, because I mean, we already know the result. It's not like Obi-Wan's going to get captured or killed,
right?
Like, so I mean, he's got to have better stats, I guess. Force stats.
Yeah.
We'll talk like as a video game. He's got to have better.
With the way the episode ended too, it's got to play out definitely a certain way where people play or end up in certain situations.
I mean, yeah, we left off on a cliffhanger type of thing, but before we go too far into that, do you want to? What's your big takeaway?
Okay, so I want to talk about some of the things that I was super excited to see in this episode. First thing, something we haven't seen really since Rogue One, and it's really been covered extensively in the comic books, the Vader comic books, but we get to see Vader's castle on Mustafar again. We go back to Mustafar, which is awesome. And we get to see Vader in his throne room, which is really cool. Him talking to Reva, stuff like that. Just seeing that kind of relationship he has with his Inquisitors and how the Inquisitors kind of talk about him is really fascinating to see on screen. And man, talk about like a dramatic way to like just stand up from your throne and just go walk out to stare out the window. Like that's all he does. But that's all Vader needs to do, dude. And it's so good. Like he just like but I love that so much. Man, like the more I see Vader and stuff like that, like, and the way that like, Disney's kind of operating when you're bringing in like these kind of characters, like if I am totally on board with them finally doing like adaptations of other media into live action, and I want to see the Vader comics brought into a live action TV show. I would love to see,
there are reports.
If they're kind of using this as kind of like a gauge to see if that's what people be interested, and of course people be interested in that. But another thing that we saw, which is another thing that we've seen in previous Star Wars media, that is not live action, is the Inquisitorius base on Ner, which is like a moon just outside of Mustafar. Like, so if you think like Mustafar obviously is the planet, that's where Vader's castle is, and then they have one of their moons, which is like an underwater planet, and that's where the Inquisitors have their base of operations, and then they kind of all operate in that kind of area. But we get to see that in live action for the first time, and we first saw that in the video game Jedi Fallen Order, I believe. Excluding like comic books. I always get the timeline of like when the comic books came out relatively to the comics or to the video games. But it's really cool to kind of see like a little area where the chamber where the Inquisitors hang out, and you see the underground stuff. You even see some of the animals that you see in the video game, which is just like amazing attention to detail. But what I loved about that scene on Ner is kind of seeing the little like like sibling rivalry kind of thing that these Inquisitors kind of have, where they're both competing for daddy's attention, essentially. And then you have kind of like the Force sister over there who's just kind of like chilling, like, okay, I'll just kind of do whatever you guys tell me to do, and then I'll just order the minions around from there, which I love that. But I kind also I forgot that the fifth brother is the actor who played Han in the Fast and Furious movies, which is like totally two different characters and two different acting styles right there. Like he's the cool guy in those movies, and then like he's just the angry Sith guy. But now when I see him, like
there's your popular reference you forgot to say. Like,
oh, that's just that's just I didn't recognize the actor from that role, which is kind of like that's the whole thing, because every time I see an actor from something that I've seen him in before, I always get really excited. Like I wish I could remember her name now, but the woman who helps out Obi-Wan and Leia is from Game of Thrones. She's one of the Sand Snakes, of course. And so that was really cool to see her again. But I'll talk a little bit more about that actually a little bit later. But so staying on Vader, Inquisitor, stuff like that. But you know that when we see Vader on Mapuzo looking for Obi-Wan, and you know, like, holy crap, like Obi-Wan and Vader are literally like feet away from each other right now. And then he's walking down the street and he is just he's trying to bait Obi-Wan out by killing innocents on the street, which is one of the most like gangster things I've ever seen in a Star Wars show or movie. I honestly applaud Disney for even doing something like that, because the fact that they just had him like snap a kid's neck because he was trying to save his dad is one of the most brutal things I've ever seen in the Star Wars thing ever. Even almost that was more brutal than anything Vader did in Rogue One, in my opinion. But the fact that he was like, okay, I can sense Kenobi is here. I'm going to kill people until he can't handle it, essentially. And then it never, Obi-Wan doesn't, like, he doesn't cave much, like, geez, but he's like, I got to get out of here. And, and then of course he has no problem like catching up to him wherever he goes. So it brought back that what you were saying earlier, that slasher vibe that he had to him. But the fact that he just did that and that Disney had, you know, the cojones to actually do it was, you know, hey, I really applaud that. I just loved it. Best episode of the show by far, of course. But man, these if that's an indicator of what these last three are going to be like, dude, I'm buckling up right now.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see everything. I mean, that perfectly goes in. You want to get some predictions?
Let's do it, my friend.
Awesome. How about, you know what? How about you kick this off? I like you start us off with predictions.
Okay. So, I want to first talk about how much I love this idea of a underground Jedi pathway that they have, where of course like, you know, Jedis can be smuggled through in hiding and stuff like that into different parts of the galaxy. But the big part of that is when we're in that little hut where there's a lot of, you know, scribblings on the walls of you know, Jedi Easter eggs and stuff like that. There's a lot of legends.
I hit you up. I was like,
there's some Jedi Easter eggs in there, and I wish I knew more about legends to expand on some of them, but some of the ones I heard were pretty cool. I just can't do them justice. You guys can definitely, New Rock Stars, Emergency Awesome, all those guys can definitely provide the details that I can't. But we get the big reference for me. To me, like we were saying earlier, that I don't think there's a big reveal here. Boom, big reveal here. There is a Quinlan Vos reference in this episode, which got me so freaking hyped. Like him and Obi-Wan have a really cool friendship. You see it in Clone Wars and stuff like that. He's a background character in episode 1. He's on Tatooine, but he's a really cool Jedi, and he's got a little bit of an edge to him. He's even had some moments where he's teetered with the dark side at some points. I think the last time he was referenced is a book called Dark Disciple, where he actually develops a love relationship with a character named Asajj Ventress, who was big in Clone Wars as well. She was actually kind of like one of Dooku's apprentices, and then when she didn't kind of do her job, he cast her out, and then she's actually she's part of like the Dathomir, the oh man, the witches. The Night Sisters. That's what it is. And so she becomes part of that whole thing, and she has a really cool story arc. And I actually would love to see Asajj Ventress in live action form. But of course, going back to Quinlan, we know that O'Shea Jackson's going to be in the show. Ice Cube's son, O'Shea Jackson Jr. I think is appropriately named. But big hints that he's playing Quinlan Vos in the show, and that I would love to see him the character in live action. But with this introduction of like the path, this underground kind of like railroad thing for Jedi survivors, I wonder if maybe Quinlan was the one who saved Grogu back in the Jedi Temple back in the day. And I feel like that would make more sense than saying like, oh, it's R2 or Yaddle or some shit like that.
We need a Yaddle reference.
I would love to see Yaddle again, dude. Give me a sign me. Yeah, I want all the weird Jedi I can get. Like, I love that era of Star Wars, and I would just love to see a lot of these characters just like again like a side characters. You don't have to give me a Yaddle show, but give me a show where Yaddle shows up in some form and she's useful in some way. But yeah, like okay, the Quinlan Voss reference. I want that more so than I want the Cal Kestis
Really?
appearance now. I think it makes more sense now, obviously, because there's the connection with Kenobi and with the announcement of the Jedi Fallen Order sequel, Survivor. We don't know when that's going to take place in the timeline, so there's no way you can establish him in the show and then like know where his game is going to go from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, the fact that there's a very high likely chance that we're going to get a Quinlan Voss in Obi-Wan Kenobi has me very excited.
Yeah. I think you summed it up perfectly of what I'm like, some of the stuff that I'm excited about. And we were talking about this, before we started recording on how many different things that we'd be excited if we saw, or how many different things. You were referencing this, that there's rumors that, technically we could get a spin-off, and it could be about the Vader comics and stuff like that. And we can see more side characters and more Inquisitor stuff and more. Oh, there's so many cool things that like could show up and that we have the potential of having in other series and in this series, and the sky's the limit. I'm so excited. But for my prediction, I really don't even have that much of a prediction. I was talking to you before we started recording on how I want to draw these connections to Riva's character. Like I want her to be that youngling at the beginning, only because the camera fixed on that youngling that. And I want that to kind of be the beginning of an arc. And then now we're seeing kind of the middle of an arc. And I mean, we know she's not in the original trilogy, so we're probably going to see the end of her.
Or any Inquisitor.
Exactly. So I want more of kind of her story arc. Like I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. And I mean, I'll give you the full credit for it because you said it before we're recording. So I'm not going to take the credit and sound like I had something profound, but I loved what you said. And I if that happens, because I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand. Like I was saying that I wanted to see a full circle arc. Like I wanted to see, she was a youngling and then she changed over to an Inquisitor and sole purpose to hunt down Kenobi for Vader, because she wanted to rise in power for this. I wanted to see like her, maybe her story arc ending in her maybe potentially risking her life to either save young Leia or save Kenobi in some situation or something like that. You were saying,
I think Leia would make the most sense. Yeah.
Yeah. You were saying, which I think is infinitely cooler, is if overall her mission was to get as close to Vader as possible to kind of take him down from the inside type of thing. And she didn't care what she had to do or who she had to kill or what she had to do to prove herself to try to infiltrate type of thing. That would be infinitely cooler. It
would make a lot of sense for her character. I don't know why you would start the show off with younglings in Order 66 when you know who killed younglings during Order 66? That was Anakin. So if there was some scenario where Anakin slaughtered her friends and for some reason took her, if for whatever reason, like obviously I don't know if we've ever had any indication that Vader was taking kids for an Inquisitor program before he got dismembered and stuff like that. So that's kind of an interesting way to see like I don't know if we've seen the origins of the Inquisitor program. I'm sure we have, but I feel like that's a very interesting way to go about that character. Because again, like she's done bad stuff. That's no doubt about that. But, I don't know why she would have this grudge against Obi-Wan Kenobi for any reason other than that. Because to her, like that was one of the greatest Jedi up until that point. And in this episode, there is a shot when she snaps that, or when Vader snaps that kid's neck, it cuts to Reva and she cringes. Like she does not. They don't handle that. Like they're not used to seeing that. Like apparently, like they're okay with slicing people up with saber stuff like that. But when you just snap a kid's neck in front of their family like that, part of that resonated with her, and I think her beef was with Vader, and to me, it also saves them from being in this little kind of like repetition thing that they have with the second sister, because we've already seen an Inquisitor come back to the light and ultimately get slaughtered by Vader. I want to see someone whose mission was to kill Vader and still get slaughtered doing it, which
would put her
make,
in the gray, basically. So she would be,
yeah, Ahsoka territory essentially.
Yeah.
Like their faith in the Jedi is gone, but they were still trying to use it by whatever means necessary. And I know there's some fans out there who are pretty divided on the gray Jedi thing. I think there's even another term that they kind of refer them to now in this canon. I think Wayfinder is one of them.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. So we're live, Danny, and we have a great comment here by my boy Fat Beater Math Teacher, which is the show's great.
By the way, first off, excellent
great name. Yeah, we love Fat Beater Math Teacher over here. But yeah, how do they fix the continuity issue of Princess Leia not knowing about this when she sent the message to Obi-Wan and R2-D2? And you and I were talking about this earlier.
We were.
This is I totally understand people's this gripe that people have, but I think it makes a lot of sense in the fact that in episode 4, again, she's the youngest senator ever, essentially. She was basically like 15 or 16 when she became a senator of Alderaan. And she's sending that message on behalf of her father, and the Empire does not know that her father is with the rebellion. And that's kind of like the big thing at that point. When she sends that message through R2, she's sending that with the idea that the Empire could intercept it. So there's nothing that's going to incriminate her father in that message, other than obviously you guys served together during the Clone Wars when that was totally fine. Like obviously that's not going to incriminate her father then, but they don't have any idea that he's been helping them out since basically the start of the rebellion. He's one of the founding fathers of the rebellion, essentially. And he's been doing his best on both sides. So she's kind of acting as like a political figure right there in that sense. So she's saying everything that she needs to in that message, while also appealing to the person that she knows will probably come and help them at the same time. Because also, we in episode 4, when Luke says, "I'm here with Ben Kenobi," she jumps right up and she goes, "Ben Kenobi, I'm here. Yeah, let's go do it. Let's go do it." Like, I think that's that whole thing. Like, she's very smart, and that's the whole. She's playing everything the right way, and I think they're very careful to make sure that none of these things actually contradict each other. And there's a really cool thread on Twitter I saw that was like they actually pulled up the script of episode 4, and like all the little pieces of dialogue that everyone was afraid was going to contradict, like the show was going to contradict the movie. They explain it in a cool way that like everything makes sense. I think they're actually paying better attention to detail than I even expected. Really.
Yeah. I mean, because they could just plow through and just be like, it makes sense.
Yeah, because that part worried me a little bit too.
Yeah, but also on just kind of like on a even, I guess, less political level as far as Leia political level. Leia is introduced to Ben Kenobi or Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ben. As basically, I'm here to save you, your father. Like, I'm bringing you back to your parents type of thing. So that's the connection that's all really she knows as far as a connection. So if I was going to ask a favor from someone I hadn't spoken to in a long time, like 10 years, 9 years, whatever, with the distance between this series and episode 4, A New Hope, I'd probably bring up like, hey, remember how you and my dad did stuff? Like,
right?
I need your help now, type of thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would probably bring it up like that way too. So it not only, like, I think your explanation is absolutely totally works, but I'm just thinking on another level. When you're asking for help and the connection that you already has been established from that is he knows her father and he's rescuing her because of her father type of thing. That's, of course, the way she's going to bring it up. And then she brought it up a perfectly, like you said, a perfectly political way in case the message was intercepted type of thing. So I think it works on both levels as far as fitting in there into canon.
It's the incredible attention to detail that that's why you have Filoni overseeing these things, because he's going to notice that the way he's able to make stories off of little moments is why he is the protege of George Lucas. That's like he's always been like that for his whole career. So, and you know the other thing is obviously the Grand Inquisitor death. That's like everyone. I think everyone's afraid that they're going to start contradicting things, but I think if they're going to contradict anything, I think they'll only contradict stuff that in like books and comics that are minor changes that most people haven't seen or read. So but I don't think they're going to directly retcon or like dismiss anything in the movies, because we're in a way beholden to that timeline. Again, it's not like Marvel where you can just say, hey, this is an established story, you can just take this aspect of it and then throw it into Star Wars. No, like you're behind this timeline, so David's gotta their goal is to almost fill in every single time gap where you can watch everything in the succession.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait until we get the Star Wars timeline, and you can start it with this, and then you can go all the way through the original trilogy. Then you can go to
Andor. Andor in a couple months, like, and the way they're saying that's gonna go from you can watch that to Rogue One into A New Hope. It's just like, okay, so what am I gonna be able to watch in the Andor then?
Eventually, it's just gonna be like as consuming as the MCU, where you can watch for like 26 movies in a row, because it's all going to be so connected. Like every single little gap's going to be filled in type of thing. And you can go right from this to this type of thing.
Yeah. And again, Marvel can also go alternate universe anytime they want. Thanks, multiverse. Yeah. That's the hilarious part. But I've always said, I am totally down to see a Star Wars what if show. A what if Star Wars show. I'm 100% in on that.
Count me down for that. I'm absolutely in. But anyway, I don't think we have any more questions, so I'm gonna say it, Rico.
We're all good.
But anyway, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below after this. What did you think of episode 3? And what do you think is gonna happen in episode 4 and the rest of the series? Are you excited to see what's going to happen between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader's next encounter? Like, I cannot wait to see that. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest video updates. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.